All right, welcome back to Judging Bouncing Balls. Toby, what a great conversation we just had.
Dude, this one, I've been waiting for this one a long time. I've been emailing with Coach Sandoval up at the Northern Michigan University, home of the Wildcats, one of my alma maters, one of three, and having him on, man, young guy, real young guy.
Yeah,
made me feel old,
but man, successful. You can tell he's a go-getter. I mean, everything I saw from him and heard from him just resonated success. So that was really cool.
Yeah, coming out of the men's program, kind of has grown up in East Moline, and then going up to Marquette, right? I mean, that's a change of pace, and then
a little bit.
Jumping from the men's side to the women's side and taking off and winning the, being a part of the GLIAC and listening to him talk about travel and the struggles that, not struggles, but what he has to go through for recruiting, right? His budgets and his travel in D2. The amount of scholarships he gets. Did you hear that?
No, I actually was out during that. So you'll find that I just leave Toby high and dry during the middle. I'm just like gone. And Toby, kind of ran the whole show without me. So I missed that. How many did he say? Actually just tease that. Let the people listen and they'll figure it out.
It's less than I thought, right? So he we talk about his recruiting, how he deals with that. It's if you want to play college soccer, this is a great level, D2, because there is money involved, and he kind of talks to you. It's ran like a Division I program. It is a winner.
Yep.
So he's really got him on the map, and which is exciting because I am a fan of Marquette, and I am a fan of the Northern Michigan University, where they say
and I
the
think
N stands for knowledge, but that's not true anymore. Go away, Michigan Tech. Go away.
That's right. And I would say if you're a parent that is, obviously we have our followers that watch us, but, if you're stumbling across this and you are new to the show, this is a great one for you to listen to for just some insight into the recruiting game, kind of what college coaches are thinking about, what they're looking for. He talks about the questions that he asks to his recruits. This is something that if you've got an athlete that's thinking about the next level, let them watch this because it's probably going to be more applicable for them than necessarily parents. We're there to help guide as parents, but this is a good one for students to listen to and think about what that next level looks like and where they want to play. Because there's some really good opportunities, like you just said, in Division II. It's not all about Division I. There's great stuff out there. If you follow anybody like Don Williams online or some of the College Soccer Truth or whoever, they talk about there's good levels. If you can play at the college level at any level, it's impressive. So you shouldn't look away from some Division II or NIAA or Division III. There's high level soccer there. So it's a good one for you to listen to and kind of take away some good nuggets.
Yeah, I really appreciate breaking down film, what he looks for. Like, that was very impressive, instead of just, I scored 4 goals. Like, here's my goals.
Right.
Never mentioned it once, right? Like,
he didn't. He never mentioned the goals at all.
Didn't care about them. And there was another tidbit there. Did you see? Don't put this in your film. That was very interesting too. Like, he's like, if you can't do that at the college level, I don't know if you're a college player. So I thought that was great.
And it's funny when there's a few things that he mentioned. I occasionally I'll just kind of stalk NCSA and I'll watch other people's films just because I want to see like what do other people put in their films. I don't even feel like I know that much. I watch some of them and I'm embarrassed. I'm like, why are you putting this out? Like, why would you think that at the next level, like this is impressive? And I think people do need to be very discerning about what they put into clips. And to his point, their time is limited. They probably are going to watch, a couple minutes. You better put some really good, impactful stuff there. Don't put just this average pass or this average goal or, it's like, or average whatever. It's because they want to see something that jumps off the page. And if you don't have something that jumps off the page, probably shouldn't be sending a video because they're going to look at that and be like, yeah.
Because he gave tidbits of what they won't watch. Like if he's got to go 2-3 clicks, he's like, beep, delete.
Yep. Delete. Yeah. So anyways, very interesting.
This was another podcast where, I look at the clock and I'm 20 minutes in and I'm like, okay, all right, how are we going to get there? And then all of a sudden I look and it's an hour and 5. I I really enjoyed having him on. This was a fun one.
It was. Yeah. So give it a like, share it out, tell your friends, all that good stuff.
It's simple. Do it for us.
Simple. Yeah.
Be so
we're awesome.
like for you. God. Not about you anymore, folks. It's about us.
That's right. That's right. All right. We hope you enjoy it. Here comes the show. Jon Sandoval, episode number 59. All right. We are live.
Well, that was quick. So I'm excited for tonight. I'll be dead honest with you. This is number 59. We've had coaches, players, but this one rings true to my heart for the Northern Michigan University women's soccer coach, Jon Sandoval. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on tonight. I really appreciate the invite and happy we were able to do it.
Yeah, we appreciate this, an opportunity to sell, yourself, your university and we're excited as a Division II coach to have you on so we can talk about your process and your recruiting process and what you're going through now for the fall season. But why don't you start? Where are you from?
The Quad Cities, so East Moline, Illinois. So right on the border of Illinois and Iowa, split by the Mississippi there. So about 8 hours south of where I'm at currently. So grew up in East Moline, Illinois, and then went to Western Illinois, and then just kind of been coaching ever since now.
Now, your soccer from youth on, just club soccer, high school soccer. What's your background?
Yeah, both. Very, very grassroots. This was the time before, the MLS Next, the ECNLs, where, the ODP was the level to get to. And so, I played a very, very grassroots soccer, and then high school was still something that, and I think you're seeing this reemergence of a lot of high school pride back into the high school soccer too. I mean, I follow quite a bit still. And so, through that. And then I was honestly think I was just in the right place at the right time and fortunate to get recruited to go play for Dr. Eric Johnson at Western Illinois. And, we had a lot of success during that time, and it was really helped pave the way into coaching and to where I am today. So I'm very grateful for, the experience that I was able to get from the game.
Now, when you got out of college, was coaching kind of your pathway, or did it just kind of fall in your lap?
No, I was getting ready to, go to a different university for graduate school because I wanted to be, a social worker. And so I didn't really ever anticipate, or maybe too naive to know that you can coach for a living, At that time, I really didn't know, yeah. And so I went into my coach's office for a letter of recommendation, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you be my graduate assistant here? I think you'd make a good coach." And I was still playing a little bit and still chasing the game a little bit, so I liked the idea of not having to necessarily get a full-time job yet and still be able to play and coach, and so that's basically how I got into coaching. But then, I didn't anticipate to continue to stay in it. But I was coaching part-time and working as a social worker. And then I just kind of had the realization that it was something I wanted to do as my full-on career. And then, just took the necessary steps, and through channeling some players and people that I knew within the game, and then was fortunate along the way to work with some really good coaches.
So when you come out of grad school and you want to coach, your immediate thought is, how far north can I get right before Canada? Because you nailed it. I'll be honest, like Michigan Tech's a little higher, but you nailed Canada. So I see, and I'll be honest, I texted a buddy of mine, and he loves doing research. So he sent me I have all the information I need right now. He's kind of a producer. But so in 2018, you got to Northern, correct, as a men's assistant?
Correct. Yep.
So was there anything in between that and grad school?
Yes. Yeah. So I was an assistant with and I did some club stuff too, but I was an assistant with an affiliate when the WPSL, they were the Quad City Eagles. They folded, but they were actually in the same league that the Green Bay Glory are in now.
Hmm.
And so that WPSL, so I was an assistant. And then I also afterwards, I took and once that folded, I became an assistant men's coach at St. Ambrose University. And so
Okay.
that's where I was there also kind of as a graduate assistant too. I still had to work full time to pay the bills at that point though. So I was, um, you know, I think graduate assistants also don't get enough credit about the amount of work that they do and the hours that they can only get paid for. And when you're passionate about the game, there's no way that you're staying within those hour limits. So I mean, that's how I treated that position too as well. Yep.
So then you get the call from Northern, and then you're a 2-year men's coach. So you get to your second year as a men's coach, and I take it the women's job opens up.
Hmm.
So at that time, did they look? Did you apply, or how does it come that where you switch sides? Right, because a lot of times people stay in their lane of men versus women.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be completely honest with you, it wasn't in the plans. Wasn't nothing that I really had thought about. I showed up to work one day and I got a call from the AD. And as an assistant coach, you don't get very many calls from the AD. And so I was like, okay,
No.
so I went into his office and he just said, "Hey, just so the team voted last night for you to be the interim coach before we start the national search." And so, I was
Wow.
grateful for the opportunity and really didn't know what to expect there, and I was just happy to be considered. And then I started coaching them, and then it was right before break, so the winter break. So I was coaching them a little bit and trying to do some organizational things, but it was really just more communication during that moment, those times. And then when we got back from winter break, Christmas break, I coached them for about a month until the position kind of opened up, and I was like, "Hey, I love this. I'm gonna apply. I love Marquette. I love Northern. I love coaching these athletes. I'm gonna apply." And I had to go through the full interview process, just like every other candidate. And again, I was fortunate to get selected at the end of the day.
Do you know how many they brought in? I mean, you said it was a national search, which most colleges do today
Mm-hmm.
at a high level. So did they? I mean, did they spread their web like a long way, or
I really couldn't tell you because they treated me just like any other candidate, at a
right?
public institution. Like, so I was really kept in the dark about who was coming up, who was interested in it. So, I mean, in the back of my mind, to be honest with you, I was nervous about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I looked at uh, I looked at my resume and thinking about, how much I've coached women compared to men. And then, this was going to be my first head coaching position at the collegiate level. Um, and so, yeah, I was definitely nervous. I didn't know if I was going to get it, but I did have a little bit of confidence in the reputation that I had with the men's program, and the work that I had for that month leading up to it. You know what I mean? I think I was able to build a really good rapport, and was able to learn a lot about my communication style and what I needed to either change or adjust or just do better in general, regardless of gender or whatever it may be. And so, um, I think within that month, it really gave me a little bit of obviously a lot of bit of a leg up on some of the competition.
Wow, that's fantastic. I just want you to know I did get a call from the president or the dean of students when I was there. Very unexpected myself. I had a little meeting, cleaned up my act, but
Yeah,
I get the one
yeah,
phone call. Very disturbing.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
disturbing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No doubt.
So you
Yeah.
become the women's coach in 2020. And that was, did you struggle with COVID?
Yeah, and I don't think in any other way than any other coach did. I do think when I'm looking back on it now, the things I struggled was recruiting. I mean, obviously, I think Northern had a longer shutdown period,
Yep.
than what the NCAA necessarily allowed. So it was really difficult for me to ever get off campus. And so, learning through some mistakes and learning through some successes within video, film, and getting better at that really helped during COVID, but not without its setbacks and trying to figure out, fine tune the way that I do those things. And then, in hindsight now, fast forward to where we are, I kind of credit that year giving us more time because we didn't play in that fall. And I took over late. I got the job basically 2 weeks later where we were shut down. And so the world was shut down. And so I didn't get a whole lot of time with the team before they all left. And so having that entire fall season, and I say fall season just because you were still restricted with, 6 feet and this and that and all that stuff. And giving us more time, it allowed us for me and the team to gel and to get to understand what the real strengths and weaknesses that needed to be addressed. So we did have some positivity from COVID during that first season.
Nice. And you had now your first season, which would have been the 21-22 that fall, or is it the 2020?
We had a spring season, so we did have a conference spring season like a lot of
that's right.
Division Ones and Division Twos did. So,
and I have you at 8-3-1, third in the GLIAC. Now, how was the program before you got there? Like, was it? I don't want to say in shambles. Like, I never want to knock down anybody before you, but was it a struggle to kind of get up and running, or was there some foundation there?
I would say a combination of both. There were some things that definitely needed addressed, and I think anytime there's a coaching change, there's typically culture, there's typically playing style, there's typically the way training is run and those types of things. And regardless if they were great, I think any coach coming in would have to, put their imprint on them too. And then, coaching it's a difficult job, and when a lot of times at Northern sometimes at Northern, you're getting a coach moving up there who may be a first-time head coach too, just like myself, and so I think you got to learn through the process and learn from your mistakes. And when you're up here and it's a long way for professional development to go work ID camps and to do these things, although you can pick up a phone, you learn a lot from failure. And I think that was really important. And so on the other side, we had a really good freshman class that year. And we had a really bought in upperclassmen. So on the positive side, they were they were bought into change and doing something different. And although that's a huge part of the mental piece, you still need a little bit of the technical, the tactical, and the skill side of it too. And I think that we just had the right combination to take the necessary steps forward to basically jumpstart where we went from 2020 to where we are today. And I think it's been a really rewarding time just to see that rejuvenation into the program.
Right.
Yep.
Now you've climbed the ladder. I know you finished third in 2021, then you went fifth, and then second, and then last year with the big year, right? 16-2 and 4. I always forget ties in soccer. I apologize. Let's just play it out, right?
Yeah.
But you won the GLIAC, and you make the tournament. You host a tournament game, and I was following on social media, and you lost it to Maryville in the snow, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
You think that'd be a huge advantage, right?
Exactly.
Why don't you take your bus ride for 10 hours and come on up, put them at the No-Tell Motel over in Harvey.
Exactly.
Be like, that's all we have left, folks. No breakfast, nothing. And then we'll see you at 10 a.m.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But how was the student body towards – so the year I got there in 92 – in 91 they won the national hockey, right? The Division One, the big hockey is Northern, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's the So, but how did the campus take to the soccer? Did they get involved? Was there some student activity with that?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that was just the amount of support that we received from the northern students and the community in general was amazing. I mean, the amount of fans that we had, it was just it was terrific to see that amount of support because, like you mentioned, you don't think UP, you don't think Marquette, and then all of a sudden come to soccer, right? You know, what I mean, our basketballs are really good. Volleyball is a big sport up here too.
Yep.
Obviously, you mentioned hockey, and so, but since I've been here, I've just seen a huge growth in the game, and this is not credit to anything that I think we're doing at Northern, but there's a lot of passionate uh, soccer individuals in Marquette. It's a
Yeah.
bigger soccer community than I think a lot of people know. And those people have been at the front lines pushing this sport for the last decade. And I think looking back on it now, we're happy. The women's soccer program is happy to be a little piece, a little part of growing the game in Marquette and the UP. And I think coaches and people that have played and love the game, we want to win. We want to create great people and great ready adults and all those life lessons. Still, though, at some of our core, we want to grow the game when we're doing these things too, as well.
Now, why do you play the playoff game outside when you have the largest wooden dome in the world
Yeah, yeah,
on campus? Right. I was just in there. We were up in April. And we had some friends with us, me and my wife, and of course I had to stick our head in the dome. There's a softball tournament going on. But I'm telling you, what a great place to play soccer.
yeah. There were a couple different factors, and there's, again, things that I didn't know because that was the first time that I've ever hosted been a part of the host of the first round of the national tournament. But, there's a full-on bidding process. And, one of the hiccups was when you play a GMAC school in the Ohio Conference, they are a religious conference. So they don't play on Sundays. And so the Dome had already had a contract for Saturday with the state agency, and they wouldn't allow us out of that contract. So we had to be strategic about what we wanted. And, truth be told, our players wanted to play outside. They were okay with it. They're like, yeah, let's do it. The dome can be a little bit narrow. The turf has been beat up for a little bit, but we're getting new turf this summer. So I think that might change some people's perception about how hey, maybe let's go inside for this game, but
yeah. Plus the elements, right? You wanted the elements.
Yeah.
Coming to Marquette. Yeah.
I mean, you think that again, McKendree and Maryville, they're down in, Illinois and Missouri, I believe. And, it was still pretty warm down there at that time. And, but credit to Maryville, they're very well coached. I mean, she's not only a great coach, but she was an exceptional player. They've got us 2 years in a row. That does not make it any easier. And so, even the weather didn't quite push us over what we needed to be at. So,
yeah, I see you lost 1-0 the first year and 2-1.
Yeah.
Those hurt, don't they? Right? I mean, it's like, come on.
Yeah. They never get any easier, too. I mean, it's
especially when we keep bringing it up, right?
Yeah. I'm not even exaggerating you. This was brought up to me probably 3 times this week.
Oh God!
Just because we're in region, and there's the NCAA conference for athletic trainers or something going on this weekend, and so people are just kind of talking and whatnot, and you run into people and you have conversations. So it does come up every so often.
Now the GLIAC itself is an interesting conference, right? Because it's spread out. Like it is not. It's not, you're not traveling 2 hours by bus every time. You're going downstate. You're going is Parkside in the GLIAC?
Correct. Yep. So
that's a trip.
Yep. And so they're actually probably one of our closest conference opponents too. So that's the
wow.
Yeah. That's the the obvious one is Michigan Tech. But yeah, and then probably the next closest one would be Parkside. And it would make that would make travel pretty grueling, but we're very fortunate at Northern, in terms of our funding, in terms of our travel. It's a really good experience. So we don't leave the day of. We get a day in between to travel, and um, it helps a lot to be able to do that. And I always say too is like road is where your character's built. It's
Right.
where you really learn who you
Yeah.
are. And so we get to bond a lot. We get to really soak it up when we're on the road and get that experience. And they've learned to deal with the grueling travel and embrace it as something that makes us a little different than our opponents.
Well, I've seen the Northern bus go by every great while. So now that you're winning, do you get the hockey bus, and the hockey bus
Oh.
gets the school bus? I mean, is this how? Is this? Do you walk around the cafeteria, little struts like we're here?
Not quite that, but we do have our own we have a Greg is his name. He drives our bus, pretty much 100% of the time, and he's been with us since I've been there. We've just been fortunate to get him every single time, and I think he's got enough pull that he wants to drive us, and so we don't get our own bus, but we do got our own driver that likes to be with us on the road. So it's fun.
That's built. Hey, we got to start
Yeah.
somewhere, right? We got to
Yeah,
build.
yeah.
We
Yep.
got to build.
Hey, I'm sorry. I got a little emergency here. I'm going to be right back. My kids are crying at the door, so I'll be
Oh,
right
no.
back.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
yeah. They're 30 and 28.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
No, but is that a recruiting? And I really want to dive into recruiting from the Division II, but is that a recruiting, is that a question that comes up for these kids? As they make their way north and they sit down with you, are they asking about the travel, or is that just part of? I think I don't know, except for the big time Division I programs, right? That fly. Everybody else is on a bus.
Yeah. In other our conference opponents, they're going to be going the day of, because they're a little bit closer, and I think you miss out on a little bit of that road experience. So like from our point of view, we sell it as a positive. Like we have some fun on the road. We've done laser tag, we did mazes, haunted houses. We've done a lot of cool stuff. We get dinners at, our players' houses and et cetera. So, I think part of it is a really good experience to be able to do those types of things. And it comes up once in a while, but I also think that by the time that recruits have done enough research and kind of figured out where we are, they're already in their mindset that they're open to going further away from home.
Yeah.
And so they're more prone to be, okay, I'm expecting to travel based on where I'm going anyway. Mm-hmm.
Now with Division II, you do offer scholarships.
Correct.
What is the pool like? I've heard even at the Division I or Division II, like you get so many, 12, 13, but you can break them up.
For sure.
So is now, and just to back up a little bit, the COVID year, did that really mess with you also on your scholarships? Because you had players sticking around 5-6 years.
5 for us was the max that we got. I think most people, or most, again, when you take over a new program, some of them are your players in the following years, but a lot of them were either took their 5th year, never their 6th, and some just left after 4. So
Okay.
it did definitely affect us scholarship wise. The NCAA only relieved 1 year, allowed them to go over just that first year, and now this should be largely the last COVID year. Well, it is for sure for at Northern anyway. And yeah, I mean, if this were to happen again, I think I would know what to do through those moments a little bit better than how it worked out this year, or how it worked out for the first time that I ever had to deal with the pandemic. But one thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to make graduating a priority, and so to come in to make cuts, massive cuts to come into a program or to change things up in the middle of a pandemic, it just didn't sit. It just didn't sit well with me, regardless of what the amount of work that the program needed. And so,
Right.
we really wanted players to graduate and to get through this process. And so, but yeah, there's things that you're going to learn through your first ever pandemic, and and you saw the NCAA scramble and make decision and just kind of pivot and go, and that's kind of how we all had to make our decisions too. And sometimes difficult decisions were made, and sometimes for the better or for the worse.
Because the NCAA gave the extra year, but they never gave you the ability for more scholarships, correct?
You were allowed to go over the very first year
Okay.
if those players were going to be seniors that year, meaning they only had 1 year of eligibility left. So you couldn't recruit new players to use that money. You had to stick with who was already there, and they've decided to stick it up for 1 more year. So
do you have to go to the school or the AD and be like, hey, we have an opportunity. I'm going to need X amount of dollars to fill this, and then they have the ability to say yes or no? Or is it just kind of...
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think it's part of the part that many people don't think about. Just because the NCAA says, hey, you can do this, you can
Right.
spend this, you can pay players, it's still going to be up to that each institution to make those financial calls. Because again, talking about COVID, you're seeing it today where universities and colleges are closing still because
Yeah.
of the effect COVID
Yeah.
had. Mm-hmm.
So how many scholarships are in a regular year without COVID and anything? How many are you allowed on your team?
Yeah, Division II is 9.9. So
9.9.
yeah,
That's not a
and
lot.
no, it's not. In Division I think it's like 14.9. I believe it
Yeah.
is. And so yeah, there's a little bit more there. I think one thing about Northern is that we're one of the most affordable universities in Michigan. But even when they're out of state, when you're working out the scholarships, because the out of state figure, because it's a percentage system, you get more money in a larger academic package because you have the academic, and then that percentage is based off of a higher number of out of state schools. So there are some perks to being where we're located and having to use we call them equivalencies, scholarship percentages. So.
So my daughter's done a few ID camps with Jeremy's daughter, and we were down at UW Milwaukee, and the coach sat down with the parents and the kids and said that there's a lot more money in academics. So if you can get the academic scholarship, Greg, you almost make yourself a little brighter to a coach because they don't have to give you money.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of the way it is all the way around?
So I think I take it as the brighter you are, just the better your package in general is. And I don't want to say the brighter you are. I mean, just the higher GPA, because I do think that there is just a lot of sometimes just work ethic, discipline, organization, because I think back, and maybe I'm generalizing based on my experience, but I don't consider myself an overly intelligent individual. I feel like I have to work really hard to compete. And so, I just think about the experience that I had and maybe the moments that I did not apply myself to the fullest in high school. And I just kind of think and it is a little bit different on the women's side, because the women's side, they really, I think they take a little bit more ownership because they're a little bit more mature during that time of their life. And at that moment, that a lot of our players or recruits are already really high academic achieving players.
Mm-hmm.
But to that coach's point, I do think you make yourself a little bit, maybe a little bit more attractive at times based on the amount of basically being able to, combine academic and athletic scholarship. It helps a lot. Yeah.
Well, and I should say, he made a great point. He's like, listen, if you have two girls getting recruited, right, and they're the same, the academic side. It's not like you're just going to be like, hey, my kid's really smart, I want him to play sport. I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
work like that either, right?
Yes.
Now, with your 9.9, how many girls do you have on full scholarship? Do you offer full, or do you just, is it more
So
halves and quarters?
yeah, so it's more so a little bit more so halves and quarters. You gotta have enough players to train effectively. So you need to, and then also you need to um, get players to come up north. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's also like I think it's gotten a lot better, but we were it's a great secret. It was a great secret for a long time up here, and now I think that secret is really starting to get out. So it's been a little bit easier now. But when we first started, and the program was winning 2, 3 games a year, we had to get people to come up here, and then
Right.
now it's not as it's difficult for players to be interested because of the distance, and so I think there are some pros and cons that apply into our decision making, our scholarships to get players to commit to come up here first. But once they understand what Marquette Northern has to offer, I think they don't regret that decision at all. It's just it doesn't play a factor in those types of decisions though.
Yeah. No, and on the same set, I think there's Old Northern and New Northern. I was there at
Yeah,
Old Northern, Wood Nickel, the third base, like the homesteads, right? And now
yeah,
it's like the Ordock Brewery, and there's
yep,
like the condos on the water.
yeah,
I'm an old Marquette guy, John. I'm an old
yeah,
Marquette guy, but that's all right. But it's crazy how far Marquette. I look at it to Duluth. Duluth
yeah,
is
yeah. That's a good point.
now right. They've hit their stride, and they've people go to Duluth, and I think Marquette used to be a pass through town, and now it's
Hmm.
not. Now it's blown
Yeah,
up, and that's got to be a huge sale for the university.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, too. I used my snowblower twice this last winter.
Oh,
Twice. Yeah, and I was like surprised. And, even though to your point though, like Marquette still depends on a good winter.
yep,
And so
yep.
that's tough because we get less tourists that want to do things in the snow, and it was actually thinking back, it's kind of a difficult winter for us economically, and now we're ready to gear up here for the summer. And I'm gonna tell you what, I tell all my players, like, you need to find a way to play. And with the WPSL, we have a couple people playing with the Glory. Chicago's somewhere. Down Detroit. However, if you ever want to spend a summer, in Marquette, you should do it. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
highly
that's
recommend it. Yeah, and like, don't worry about playing that summer, but just have a really cool experience in a very unique place.
that was one of my big regrets because
Hmm.
I came home to Green Bay, and we went up. I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. I drove the road behind the dome and behind your soccer field, and I'm
Yeah,
like, "There's a beach here." Like I never knew it because everything was my freshman year. Lake Superior froze over, and for 3 days straight, it was -75 wind chill. It was
wow.
terrible.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
school was closed. Everybody's at the bar, but it
yeah,
was really cold.
yeah,
So I get it's kind of nice on the warm winter, but yeah, Marquette is just unbelievable in the summer.
yeah. Absolutely.
Now, getting back to recruiting, what is your recruiting period for a fall sport?
Yeah, so basically, June 15th is when, pretty much here in 10 days is when we'll start looking at, our 2026 recruiting class. Um, and, and I may differ from some coaches, in the strategy of how they go about recruits and the way they do it. But I do start early, and I think I'm patient with the process, but I am also trying to be meticulous about what we're looking for, and ultimately what we're looking for is what we've seen within our program of players, like mentally, tactically, technically, and physically, that have had success, and we're like, how can we find that next Brooke? How can we find that next, Callie, that type of player, and who fits that mold, and what do we see those similarities in either their film or in person? And so that takes a little bit. And also, we're this early. We're also not in the business of pressuring kids to make decisions this early, though, either. Really what we're doing at this stage is still identifying for a while, having some conversations, and maybe extending some visits during our fall season. And I will say too, I got some really, really good advice when I first became a head coach, because I was like, all right, I'm going to go find the very best players. Don't care where they're from. I'm just going to just do that. And an older coach and just kind of came to me, was like, look, that's a great idea, but here's what I would do. And he's like, go find your niches, go develop your connections with a few clubs, and go back to those bread and butters. And then once you have a core identified and what you want, then you can start to branch out, build your next network, and to find the best players, as you say. And really, that's the recruiting strategy that we've taken. We've built some really good connections, in Detroit, Wisconsin, and then Illinois. And now you're seeing us branch into a little bit of Texas. We got a couple of Texas kids.
I saw Texas A&M down there in College Station.
Yeah.
That's a hike.
Yeah. Yep. Got a couple. I find that like Texas recruits, they totally are never leaving Texas, or they can't wait to get out, and most of the time they're never leaving Texas, but occasionally we'll get one that wants to move it. Yeah.
Snag one out of the heat.
Yeah.
I see you got one from Galaxy. The 24 recruited class, Legends out of down near Detroit, Chicago FC, and then the Jaguars. So, and the reason, so our daughters are both just finishing their sophomore year. So June 15th is going to be brand new. Like,
yeah,
I know my daughter, she's got in Jeremy's daughter has their film going out, and like we've made some pretty big strides as our club. Our 08 girls are very decorated in our club. We've won State Cup 3 times. So we finally got to go to the national tournament down in Orlando this past year. We're all excited, right? We fly down there. The girls are fired up. Not one coach. Not one in the whole complex of Disney, right? So we're like, okay, that sucks. Then we move on to Tampa, and we're like, oh, now it is. Now is our time. And there was nothing. And then we talk like it seems to be all ECNL right now. Like everybody's in love with ECNL. So now our club is like, well, now what do we do? So we are going to have the opportunity to do a couple showcases this year with a guest with our kind of sister club out of Iowa, out of Grand Rapids, I think. So what do you think of the USYS versus GA versus ECNL versus all these ever-changing landscape of chasing dreams, I like to call it, because like you're like, all right, we made it to Premier One, and they're like, yeah, Premier One's not very good anymore. We moved it to this.
Yep.
So what do you see as like for your level? What do you? I mean, are you down in the ECNL, or are you just kind of like you said, casting a net and in your lane?
Yeah. So I mean, we will definitely go to, and again within some constraints due to budgeting, we have to limit, when we go to these national showcases, we have to make sure that we're going to see the most amount of people, maybe the highest talent that we can find, because we're, at Northern, I'm only going to go, to just a handful of national showcases, if that. Especially, I got a 9-month-old, so now it's even harder for me to, you know what I mean? And like,
you're not going far, Coach.
No, I know. And it's been like this year has been like, I shouldn't even say this on the show, but it's been very difficult for me to get off campus this year. After the season was over, we're obviously very far north, so we don't have family, we don't have grandparents, it's just me and my wife. So, and but anyway, that does limit some things for us. But we'll go to a couple. I'd say probably about 3 national showcases, but then we'll try to keep it really regional. You know what I mean? We'll try to stay in the Midwest, but they'll most of the time they are within within those initials of ECNL or GA typically speaking, just because we feel like we're going to see the most people with potentially the most amount of talent in one area. And that's how it is today. But
Right.
to your point, it'll change. You know what I mean? And I think if you, and maybe I shouldn't say this either, but I think if you follow the dollar signs, it'll just change to the dollar signs. I think, and I think that's just, we could have our own complete episode on youth sports in America, and just where we are and the amount of the amount of corporations that are getting into youth sports. And that should tell us something right then and there, that why are they getting involved? It's
I think out of Illinois, I don't know if it was Evolution. One of them was like bought up by an equity firm, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, these are regional little community soccer programs that all of a sudden have. I mean, the Michigan Tigers. I thought I heard like 10,000 kids. I mean, some astronomical number.
Yeah.
We have 1,600 kids in our club, which is the biggest in Northeast Wisconsin, probably from Oshkosh up through you guys, and we're not even close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
but
it's
and then then to get a parent to our big thing is because we talk about it all the time, and that's kind of where the podcast came from. Is at what point you look at your 5-year-old kid who just hit the ball in baseball and he hit it past the second base, and you're like, this kid is the next Babe Ruth. We should throw all kinds of money at the kid and start traveling. And then you look at your other kid and you're like, I got bad news, right? Here's a clarinet.
And we're talking, just like I mentioned, we got a kid now, and everybody's up here is like, oh yeah, I bet you he's gonna end up playing hockey. And I'm like, man, I hope not, because that's going to be just not worse than soccer, because
oh yeah,
here's, man, going off on a tangent too as well, is like the amount of travel that the clubs are doing. When did you go to Florida? What month?
December, Jeremy, early December.
Yeah, December, and then February.
February for Tampa.
December and February. Okay. Yeah. And so just the amount of travel that it requires and to do those things, and then you're not even making you stay at a certain hotel. I don't know if they make you stay in certain hotels or
every one of them. Every one of these stay in place.
Yep.
We're headed to Kansas City in 2 weeks for regionals. Our team.
Yeah.
So we've played in everywhere from Indianapolis to St. Louis, and now Kansas City. For some reason, they're like, we should just go farther. So, of course, my wife and my daughter are going to fly. I mean, why not? And me and we're driving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you try to pinpoint this a little bit. But yeah, it's like, and that's our big thing. It's like, I love it. I think we have more fun as a group of parents and good, and that's made it exciting. Meeting Jeremy and doing all this stuff has been great. But at the end of the day, right before, if there's very little money in college women's soccer.
Yeah.
As you look back and the question is always, is it worth it? Yeah. Right? I mean, I think there's a lot of good that comes of it. I think these kids learn team, they learn structure. Yeah. We've had amazing coaches, but I think some of these, like you mentioned, hockey, they're going every weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, and you wonder where does youth sports go from here?
Yeah.
Kind of at a point where is there a tipping point, or does it just keep money wins?
Yeah, and I don't even have that answer, but I've been thinking more about it just based on that's going to be my life sooner or later, and what's it's going to look like, in 10 years and whatever it is. And I do want to make one comment too. We go to those showcases, but the vast majority of our players are on our team. They play in the National League, so they're not in the GA, they're not in the ECNL. The majority of the players that we get are straight from the National League, and our 4 All-Americans this year that we had, were National League players.
Okay.
And so like we've done really well in the National League, and because I think we give more attention, and then typically if we're able to get some higher level players that maybe are just go a little bit under recruited at times. So um, I don't want to paint this picture of you got to play in the ECNL, you got to play in the GA or whatever it is, because I think what you got to do is you got to make those memories. Like I told you, I was on vacation in Florida with club soccer buddies, and I mean, our parent group were friends still. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been friends forever since. You know what I mean? So like, it's not just the players that are getting that great experience, but our parents had such a great time, and we were just going to Peoria, Illinois, Dubuque, Iowa. We were traveling 2 hours, and that was it. 3 tournaments a year, and you're done with soccer. And to see where the game's evolved. Um, yeah, I mean, then you think about the indoor facilities that they have now. So now you're never taking time off besides like July or whatever they do now. I mean, now I feel like this is why high school soccer is making this comeback, because now you're putting some pride behind it. You're not just playing in showcases where you're just playing to play. You learn to play under pressure, under the lights. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that go to high school soccer games. I mean, at least, in front of your people that you're going to see on a daily basis. I think high school's breathing a lot of a good, fresh air that the game needs right now. And yeah, man, it does worry me. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know where it's going to go, but
Right.
yeah, it's alarming for sure.
Well, you're looking at me and Jeremy have talked hours about that. I'm a big fan of high school. I'm a big fan of playing for your community, playing for the crest on your shirt, right? The
Yep.
name on the front means a lot more than the hell of a lot more than the name on the back, as they say. So I think we're excited for that. I think club in some areas is taking over the high school experience, but I would never let my kids. I think they're having too much fun playing high
Yeah.
school sports.
Yep. And yeah,
Yeah.
and I enjoy watching it too. I think just even watching some of my high school, my alma mater when I went to United Township High School down in East Moline, and watching them, they almost won conference this year. It's their highest finish, and just I think when you apply that kind of pressure in the lights, that's why I always love going to, like, you have your National League playoffs, you have your ECRL playoffs or ECNL playoffs. When they finally get in these leagues, the GAs or whatever it is, and they're starting to finally play to knockout stages, that's really what I like to see. You know what I mean? There's just an element of pressure where you can kind of read a little bit of of the mental game. How tough the kid is, how mentally tough is they, how do they work through adversity, what do they do, and they make a mistake and they pick themselves back up. We're doing a playing for the sake of playing and traveling for the sake of traveling sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
our season at Bayport ended. 6 seed came in. We're the 2 seed, and we didn't play well. Next thing you know, we're on the outside looking in. And that's what I love about it. Like, you lose, you're done.
Yep. Exactly.
Now, when kids send you their film, what, I guess, because me and Jeremy are both like this. I love cutting tape. I love going back to their games and cutting the little snippets. But then I hand it over to my daughter and say, "Make your tape." So what do you look for in a tape for the people out there? Because I know that's always one of the questions that came up yesterday to ask is, what does a coach look for in the tape they send? What information are you looking for to try to jump out off the page?
Yeah. And, just a couple housekeeping things before is like when you're sending film, make it really easy to access, and so I don't have to go to I don't care if I have to click on a link, that's not a problem. But if I have to go through signing in or doing something else, make it a hassle. A lot of coaches just won't take it that next step. And the other thing is too is if I have everything right there in front of me, it's perfect. That's what I really like to do. So you could put your film in there, and then all your information where it's easily accessible is the best method. Um, and then it gets down into position. It definitely depends on the position, but one thing that I've really started to look at, and I think it just like I mentioned earlier, it comes through experience and making good decisions and making bad decisions or making the wrong decision. Really trying to look at the feet. So like what's her balance like? How quickly can she kind of change directions or pivot and go the other way? Does she have some rhythm with her feet, or her feet quick? Can she get out of tight spaces? That's one thing in overview, just in general, that I've really started to pay attention to. And then, as I mentioned, it gets into more specific based on position. So, like for instance, let's say it's just a center back. I think one thing that a lot of players and freshmen are not ready for is how much the ball is actually in the air. The ball is in the air all the time at the college level. Like unless you're top 5% of Division One, the ball is going to be in the air a lot. It's the nature of the beast. You're taking a lot of really athletic, fast, strong, good soccer players, and you're putting them all in the NCAA college levels, and then all of a sudden, like that, everybody's fast, everybody's good, everybody can do those things, and so the ball goes in the air a lot more than I think that players are ready for. So for a center back, showing that they're can be good in the air, you know, um, if they're getting into a tackle, like show us, the 5 or 10 seconds before that so we can read their positioning. And especially if you're getting into a slide tackle, sometimes when you're going to the ground, it may mean you made a mistake 10 seconds before. So we sometimes want to see those things. The other thing too, when it comes to like defending in positions like that, defending positions that defend, you're seeing a lot of tackles, challenges, and those are great. But also make sure that you can connect passes out of the back, in particular, break lines. So meaning it breaks lines, maybe go directly into the forward or target's feet. One thing, as I mentioned, the ball's in the air. If you have the ability to hit a direct long ball over pace, it's a really important skill at the next level too. So really trying to hit home 4 or 5 points based on the position. I'd say probably 3 minutes is fine. You can go under three. If you got some really good clips, then you can just really gather their attention. Put your best clips forward. Because it might be three, but a coach may only get a minute and a half through it.
Yeah.
So put everything that you have based in best, next best, 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 best. Keep going. If you take corners, I would suggest not putting them in. That's kind of I guess, like I think serving a ball at the next level is going to be is kind of an expectation. You should be able to do
Yep.
good service.
Yeah.
I'd rather see you in the corner and battling to score, because the majority of college goals at our level are going to be scored from set pieces and services. So like seeing you defend or even winning those challenges in the box are great too. Yeah, so I would just base it off position and just always put your best clips first.
Okay. Wow. I'm not saying you're going to see some video out of Swamiko, but you never know.
There you go.
Just
There
saying,
you go.
never know. I'm going to put. What's funny? When you're down in Oshkosh this weekend, and the reason we name this judging bouncy balls because we sit there, and now it's getting better, but I would say
It
at the what are we, 2008 or this is my problem with soccer.
Yeah.
We're 2008 or we're 2016. I have no idea what we are.
Yeah.
But as they're younger, right? Goalie kicks the ball bounces, girl runs like she's going to knock it out of the air, ball bounces over her head every time.
Yep.
So that's why we name this judging bouncy
Yep.
balls, because nobody can judge. And the one theory we heard, and you can change this with a young one, is dads didn't play catch with their daughters. They don't understand the depth of the ball. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it
Makes sense.
totally could be. Yeah.
So it drives us nuts. We're like, back up, and then no, they run forward.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Yeah.
I guess, Jeremy, do you have any questions? No, been at it for 55 minutes.
No.
Goes quick.
Yeah, it did.
I apologize.
Yeah.
What happened, Jeremy?
Yeah. No, I apologize for stepping away. So my kids are fine. John, you don't know this, but we have chickens on our farm,
Oh, do you?
not farm, but our little place, and we just lost 5 of them. The kids found 2 of them without heads, and so they were
Oh
like
no.
losing their minds.
Yeah.
And there was a
What?
fox back there, so yeah,
Oh,
so we just lost 5 of them. So I apologize for being gone.
No.
The kids were losing their minds, and I had to go take care of bodies. So
No. I get it. I get it. I get our athletic trainer here at Northern. He's got chickens, and I get my eggs from him because I
yeah,
can't. It's the first time I've ever had eggs like that before, and I'll probably never go
they're
back.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
they're so good.
he's been short on supply because his chickens got taken out not too long ago, man. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I get it.
So, anyways, so I apologize, but no, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you talked about this, so I apologize. You mentioned early on, kind of your path involved ODP, and we've got a long-standing joke about, well, we don't know how good ODP or bad ODP is. Do you factor as a coach in ODP? Because I'm at this point, and I know Toby's been there before as well. With I just don't know if it's worth the money. Sometimes it feels like a big money chase, like a lot of youth sports. By the way, youth sports up to $19 billion annually, which is kind of crazy. But
That's
do
crazy.
you find value in ODP when you're recruiting? Like, is that something you look at and say, "Wow, this person made it to regionals, or they made it to the regional team, or the national team"? I'm sure it factors in at some level, but how much clout do you put into ODP?
I think kind of to your point is like it does seem like there's quite a few people is on the state teams. You know what I mean? I do think
Yeah,
though, like if I see someone that's like, hey, I was a regional camp invite, or I was on the Midwest team, or I made it the national team, or whatever it is, there's value in that. You know what I mean? That's not
okay,
easy to do. To get to those the regional ones, you gotta have some ability, and I don't want to undersell that because I do think there's you know although I feel like ODP had to adjust their model based on everybody else's model. You know what I mean? Truth be told, I got cut from ODP twice. Ended up playing Division One because there were basically two teams in Illinois, and we have Chicago. You know what I mean? And so I was from a grassroots club, and so like I never even made my ODP team. And so
I'm just amazed they cut people.
yeah, 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 yeah. So and that's kind of where we put our stock in. Like so,
Okay,
and it's I was down in St. Louis last summer recruiting at a regional event. So the ECRL playoffs. Again, like I mentioned, I love the playoffs, and I do more of ECNL second division in the RL quite a bit too. And the ODP was putting on an event at the facility over. Number one, I didn't even know. They had a Midwest event going on in St. Louis the same weekend.
hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of college coaches signed up for the ECRL event. I would have told all those coaches, you also have an event there because our games were done by like 1 p.m. Um,
Oh wow,
and I watched two. I think it was Illinois and Michigan, and maybe Missouri and Nebraska or something. And there was some good quality in the women's side, and I was pretty impressed with what I saw that day. Again, they're like I've looked up some of those players since then, and they're pretty high quality. So I think there definitely can be some value in it. It just depends
hmm.
on the state and how far they get beyond that. Because I do think it
yeah.
does get kind of watered down when everybody's making a state team for sure.
Yeah. No, was that last year? You said?
Yeah, I was there last year.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's Amelia was down there last year, and that's where I'm sending her again to Cincinnati this year, and I don't know, we just go back and forth, and I wrestle with like, man, is it worth it? I mean, it's just yeah, and so I just don't know if it's something like that fits into the plan of where she's at. She's been to those ID invites for the regional teams but it's just I just don't know if it's even. I just go back and forth. So I appreciate your perspective because that does
Yeah.
help to know that somebody's actually looking.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, you see ODP there, and once you see the other parts of it, it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? It just strengthens
Okay.
the resume, in my opinion. But again, I think, um, kind of depending on the amount of time, resources, what she wants to do. I think those are what it really. I think sounds like sounds like if she's enjoying it, I think that's the big thing. And like, can we continue to get these kids to enjoy this sport and not,
Right.
I think you see it not just in soccer, but it is an issue in soccer. We just lose them after 13. They just drop off quick. And I don't know the answer to that either, but it's got to be joy, excitement, lack of burnout. You know what I mean? Traveling
Yeah.
So again, I don't know the answer, and I might.
No, that's
Yeah.
Well, that was the big
no, that's
problem.
fair. And
Oh, go ahead.
go
Troy.
ahead.
I was going to say the big problem was we do the I'll call it regional ODP the week before regionals for a club. So we'd be in Cincinnati or Indianapolis. You come home for 4 days. We're racing to say St. Louis, and then you come back, and 2 weeks later, and we'd be at the ID in Illinois. And by then,
Yeah.
you're so burnt out that I'm just sitting in a hotel room, just like what. And then my daughter did not advance to Florida, and I was kind of like, thank God. I mean, at some point, I gotta cap this. But and that was kind of my thing. It just became a lot for the success of our club team, which was a fantastic thing, state champions and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like they could use a little break because right now soccer is 11 and a half months out of the year. I mean, they're creeping in on July.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's the thing about what I hear from, parents, because, and just even recruits parents and talking about the same things that you guys are talking about. I think all the parents are saying it, and it's having a kid, like, they always say things are going to change when you have a kid. And now I understand it. And I'm like, man, I don't know, financially, resources, like, could we do that? You know what I mean? How do you do that? And for those that can't do that, are we missing out on a talent pool? You know what I mean? Are we missing out on?
I think so.
Yeah,
100%. There's a lot of people that are missed out on.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a little daughter? Is that what I heard?
Son. Yep.
Son. Okay.
Son. Yep.
I got all girls. I don't know what that is. So that sounds horrible.
Sons are cool too.
There you go. Yeah.
No, but you're right. That's something that you shouldn't have to worry about, right? You shouldn't have to worry. Like as a parent, like, can I afford to give my kid the opportunity? And that's what's not right about youth sports at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say about Amelia is, like, I wish sometimes she would get burned out. That kid would go to any soccer thing, anywhere, anytime, and it's like, honey, we can't go everywhere, and you need to take a break because I'm tired.
And, that's one of the, in my initial recruiting call, I ask our recruits basically, the standard questions, what do you know about NMU, all the, I'm only asking like really a couple. But I asked him one really important one is basically, what does it mean to be competitive? And I think for a lot of them, the people and the recruits and the players that had success are the players that have answered that they're internally motivated and they love the game. And so, like, for them, all they know is competing because they just want to win because they love it. They absolutely love the game.
Yeah.
And then most of the time within that same breath, they're also talking about moments of adversity or moments of failure and then them picking themselves back up and succeeding the next time. And those things really opened me up to a little bit of their thought process in their mind and how they're going to react in difficult situations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, we played.
It's a good question.
Jeremy lives over in Stevens Point, so they trek a good hour and 10, and then we play at Appleton. So we're both, and then tonight we actually scrimmage the Glory.
Cool.
The girls that are out of high school soccer because everybody lost. So we had our club team, about 80% of them get together, and it was great. I mean, those girls are coming out of college and bigger, and that's it was kind of fun to watch us. Give it a shot.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got Maria Sorensen on that team this year, and so she's in Appleton, Yeah, Appleton native. So yeah, it's good. I usually come down and catch a game.
Okay.
Yeah, and so because when I was still coaching the men up here, I was an assistant under Brian Cambler for the Voyagers.
He's a coach in our club now.
Yeah. So Cam and Tony Pierce and I spent a summer in Green Bay, and
Okay.
and I'm a Packer fan, so I really enjoyed spending my spending my summer there. I lived at like Northwestern Technical College dorm, something like that.
NWTC.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right off of Mason
My
Street,
brother
sure.
teaches there.
Oh yeah. So yep, that's where I lived.
Yep.
It was good, man. I really enjoyed my time there. Yep.
That's awesome.
Hey, one quick question before we let you go, because you got a little one. Turf or grass? We try to ask everybody. Grass, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So many people turf and the injuries and the
Yeah. Well, I think if I remember correctly, the Packers are kind of like they were leading that charge to get the NFL to go back more grass, and I think that's where you gotta start. You know, I mean, you get the NFL on board,
Big dogs.
Yeah, they start rolling. Yep. They're gonna. I think that's where it's gonna happen if we are able to do that just across the board. Because man, just especially within females and ACLs and just injuries and it's just it's tough, man. It's tough.
That's our biggest concern. We had an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Shock, out of Green Bay here, and he kind of went through all the injuries, and he said in the young females, the ACLs, the tears, the year off, like it's just there's a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough.
Well, good. I'm glad you're a grass guy because turf is bad.
Yeah. No doubt.
Well, hey, I really appreciate it. Jeremy, really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, very much so.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Northern Michigan University. I mean, it's kind of the big, it's top one universities in my book. So I think it's awesome. You're coaching there. I'm super excited for you. Wherever it takes you, you keep winning. You never know, right? Like,
yeah,
that's right.
It's fun. Yep, it's definitely fun for sure.
Well, excellent.
Awesome.
We'll let you go. If you would Jeremy's gonna hit the button. If you would hang on for about 2 seconds so it downloads, and then we'll let you go. But we appreciate you coming on.
For sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
Thanks, John.
Yep.